Welcome to WP Constellations, a podcast exploration of the WordPress universe, brought to you by Stellar WP. Welcome to the next episode of WP Constellations, your stellar WP exploration of the WordPress universe. And I think today it's fair to say, if there is a sun that is the part of that's the WordPress universe, part of the origin story, it is the person I'm interviewing today, which is Matt Mullenweg. Matt, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. And as I mentioned before we started, this is an unusual interview for me because I have been quarantining. Because a few days ago, I was going to go to an event. I felt totally fine, but I got a positive COVID test. So I am currently I'm quarantine match. Although
No,
I did get a negative test this morning, which is great,
so
4 days later. So
you're no longer one of the untouchables.
hopefully I'm going to run another one this afternoon before I start to reintegrate into society. So
Well, most of us have been there with COVID over the past few years. So I guess it's inevitable that at some point,
2024, I thought we were done with this stuff.
gosh, I
No?
wish, I really wish, especially with all the community events that we have coming up, and how we've been ramping things up. It's been pretty exciting, actually. Last year we had the first WordCamp Asia. WordCamp Europe was back for, I think, the third year since the pandemic, and lots of local camps all over the world have been coming back, which is pretty exciting. So to see you at some of them, whether it was remotely for
I'm
Asia.
very excited to go to WordCamp Asia in person this year. It's one
Ah,
of the things I'm allowing myself to do during sabbatical. So um, I am on sabbatical right now.
yes.
So I'm not going to prepare a talk or anything. I'm just going to do a Q&A. And I'm also bringing some friends.
Oh, sweet.
Uh, Tim Ferriss is coming. I actually just spoke to him last night. He's going to prepare actually a really exciting talk for the WordPress community.
Nice.
So that should be fun. Ben Thompson from Stratechery is going to speak.
Nice.
I'm trying to make it just a fun thing, and I'll just vacation in Taiwan for a bit before and after. So if you see me there, I'll be more in like a chill mode than like a necessarily work mode like I normally am.
Chill mode is good. I'm speaking at WordCamp Asia as well. It's people scroll down and there we are side by side on the speakers page because it's alphabetic and I fall
Nice.
alphabetically just beside you, which is pretty fun too.
I'm
Um,
honored to be with you.
Likewise, thank you. I, as you know, love our community and the things that we do. I am a huge proponent of so many things, and you once called me the busiest woman in WordPress, and I love that. It made me smile, caught me off guard, which was kind of fun. But I just love our community and giving back to our community, and so I wanted to talk about that today. There's so much that's going on. There's so much that shut down for a little while during the pandemic, and now that we are post lockdown, I don't know if we'll ever be past COVID. I think it'll always be part of our future, but I thought we could jump into some of those things. But before we talk about what's happening in WordPress in the future, I want you to look back over, the last 20, almost 21 years now since the WordPress was launched, and tell me what are some of your favorite community initiatives that we've had over the years.
You know, open source is really a radical act of generosity. And so the times when I'm proudest of myself and also of the WordPress community is when we have been generous. And so if I had to like epitomize that, it's that the sort of do action type events where we as a community come together and then like redo a website for a nonprofit or a good cause. Um, just feels like a win-win-win, right? Because we are taking some good cause, right? We're donating our time to put them on open source software and make them a better website, which then will further their cause. So that just feels like we can't fix everything in the world, and we have to pick our lane, right? We're the CMS makers, right? We're like the tinkerers on the widgets,
Yes.
making the Gutenbergs and the blocks and everything like that. But if we can make our tool really amazing, perhaps we can enable others be sort of like a fulcrum for goodness in the rest of the world. And I love that when we put our times towards that. Now, because we're open source, It can also be used as a fulcrum by bad people, you know. Bad people can use WordPress too. But that's not where we put our time, right? That's not where the do action events are. So I really love that, and I feel like it's a good embodiment of our values.
I agree with that 100%. And I love that our events, when we do get together in person, allow those kinds of connections to be made to see those things kind of come forward too. So sometimes, it's two people meeting serendipitously over lunch or coffee or something at a word camp that starts to spark ideas that pushes things forward to be able to have those kinds of things, whether it's a hackathon, a pointed event, the next gen events that are coming up, things like that. So it's a pretty awesome community.
Well, and something very key to that as well that I didn't mention is that, you know, when we build these sites for people, we're giving it to them so that they can manage it themselves,
Yes.
right? And so, you know, it's teaching someone how to fish, not just giving them a fish. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the WordPress community. It's not like we're like a secret guild of people who know how to use WordPress and we don't want anyone else to. Like part of what we're doing when we're building WordPress sites is we're teaching people how to use WordPress so that they can do it themselves. So we're giving them agency, we're giving them liberty, we're educating. And that's the beautiful thing about knowledge. Like I can share knowledge and you can have it. I didn't lose anything, but
Right.
then everyone gets better. You know, it's kind of like when you think about technological advances to the ages, like at some point, people didn't know how to, you know, plow fields and till soil, and that was a new technique. That was a new technology. But that technique spread.
Hmm.
And it didn't mean that the person on this farm has any less corn or something like that than the person on this. It increases, it raises the floor for everyone. And I believe that is kind of the root of human progress.
Hmm.
And why I feel like open source is this sort of secular religion that can really, we can all contribute to and really help everything get better in a way that feels, for me, very fulfilling. I came across this word, eudaimonia, which is a Greek word for sort of like your higher purpose, being connected to something
Hmm.
bigger. And uh, I'm going to explore that more. You might hear me use that word more. It was sent to me by Blake at Equalify, I believe. So, yeah, something I think that might be, we might need a word like that to describe what we're doing.
I like that. It's kind of like the idea of Kaizen, ever better and continuing to grow for the higher purpose.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of
And that
sense.
feels, I don't know what the meaning of life is. That feels pretty darn good. And something that I feel like I can continue doing for the rest of my life. And it's very generative, you
Hmm.
know, like it's not like I'm ever going to complete that. I'm never going to be done, you know, teaching people how to build things and building the tools for them to do so. So that also feels very fulfilling to have something that I've at least personally picked that I can work on the rest of my life.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually. And for some of us, the rest of our lives is a lot sooner than others of us, as being somebody who's a little bit older in the community. And I think about a lot. I think about what the next 10 years or next 15 years might look for me before I kind of age out and retire from WordPress or from work and what that might actually look like. It's like, do you ever retire from WordPress or do you just like continue to be part of it and hopefully shepherd people up into the community as well, which is another thing I want to talk about. So, is getting the next generations into WordPress. I think one of the things that we do, at least one of the initiatives that's been handed to me here at Stellar WP, is not just to sell our products, because we're not just about selling our products. We're about educating people about WordPress so that WordPress stays relevant for all of us and we continue to bring more people and younger people into it. What do you think companies like mine and other companies, whether they're bigger or smaller, can and should be doing to continue to grow WordPress, not just in our own little bubble?
Well, you already answered your question, which is like future generations, right? I think it's totally fine that there's seasons of contributions and how I have contributed to WordPress changes, you know, all the time. And even right now, like I was on a track ticket yesterday. I haven't been on a track ticket in a while. That felt kind of good. But, you know, I contributed something to that. And um, and then maybe someday, maybe my mind is feeble and I'm unable to code or set strategy or something like that, but perhaps I can still like tell people how fun it is to blog or
Hmm.
something. And that sort of sparked that interest. So these are all forms of contribution. And and what's beautiful about it is it's contributing. Yes, you're contributing to WordPress, but really what you're doing is contributing to that person's life,
Hmm.
right? You're giving them something that you believe will make their life better. So the fact that it benefits WordPress is kind of like um, a side thing. Really, what we're doing is benefiting the people, and because of this beauty, this amazing, intellectual property hack of open source, like then WordPress also gets better, and the people get better, and it's this nice virtuous loop. So I think, yeah, you already answered your own question. So sorry.
Yeah, but there's different ways to do it. No, but there's different ways to involve the next generation. And I think um, we can continue to build good products, but shepherding people in is sometimes the more challenging piece of it, and showing our relevance, not necessarily from WordPress, the project, but those of us who are using it, to make sure that the next generation, like I built my daughter a WordPress website this year for her DJ business. So now she's a
Cool.
WordPresser. She doesn't log in. She doesn't want to log in, but her site's on WordPress. And so that helps her with, and I think uh, she's not the next generation anymore. So, oh, she's a grown up, but there are so many other people that we're bringing in who are teenagers and things like that too. So
How old is your
I just,
daughter?
she's, she'll be 32 next month.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay,
She went
well,
with
we'll
me.
make a WordPress user out of her at some point. But
Exactly.
we need to make the mobile apps better, by the way. I think that would
Mm,
really connect people to things. Because how cool would it be? Like she has a DJ business. How many people are visiting her website? Where are they from? You know, does she have a
yeah.
contact form? Like, there's so many ways to interact with it. And I think also one of the best ways is, leading by example.
Mm.
So make your own website super cool. I've been working on mine. I've been blogging a lot more. One of the best things about the sabbatical is it's freed up automatic, it's quite a job.
I think
Lead,
so, yeah.
the day I left, we were 1,934 souls, people. And so leading that team is an incredible privilege and an incredible responsibility that
Mm.
weighed so heavily on me, on my shoulders, the
Yeah.
lives of those 1,934 people and their families. And so, being able to take that off my shoulders, hand it to Tony Schneider for a few months, has freed up so much mental energy for me. And a lot of it's been going into writing. I actually have this really long, like multi-thousand word essay. I've been working on the past few days, and I'm just kind of blogging a lot, and it's really fun and lovely. It's also
That
brought
is
up
fun.
a good discussion about Planet and what we should do there. So like I like these. These are forcing functions. So it kind of encourages us to like maybe pay attention to some parts of our community that have fallen fallow, like the jobs sites, the planets, the forums, I think are way worse than they used to be, how they function. So there's a lot of things we can go back and work on and really kind of get them back to that community flywheel. Um, Part of the WordPress always had a wiki, and everything had to edit this page. You could just click edit. We have a lot of documentation now that doesn't have a very simple edit button on it. And we can define what that looks like. Maybe edits go into a moderation queue. That would be pretty cool. That would be kind of a new paradigm on the web I haven't seen. Wiki plus moderation.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I would be really interested to see that. And I'm yeah, so you'll see me around. I'm on sabbatical, but I'm also like just for me that means working on things I love. And so I will be around like the meta channels and track tickets and all those things. So I'll go to this WordCamp and do a Q&A. So I'm going to do a Q&A, not a talk. That's kind of
Gotcha.
like my thing is like because talks I really spend a lot of time preparing. Um, lots of like the state of the word, hundreds of
Yeah.
hours from many people go into something like that. Um, so this is a Q&A though for me is easy. I'll just go and answer questions, kind of like this. Like
Yes.
this. I'm on sabbatical, but I was like, yeah, I'll talk to Michelle. Like this is easy. This is
Make it fun, I hope. Anyway.
yeah.
I
It's
love,
just a conversation, and I think
yeah,
conversations are what we need more of in the world.
I agree. It's how we get to know each other better and share really good information, like Five for the Future. I love the concept of Five for the Future. I love people working towards everything that happens with WordPress. And I was several years into working with WordPress and even being part of WordCamps and things like that before I realized that to contribute, core was only part of contribution. That so much more goes into. And within the last 2 years, we have the photo directory now, which is almost to 14,000 photos. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Um, and the mentoring programs and all the things that are happening. So it isn't just contributing to core that makes you a WordPress contributor, and contributing for Five for the Future. Because as somebody who's not a coder, it was really exciting to me to know that there are other ways that I could contribute in a positive way.
It's like how can you take creative work and put it into the commons? That's fundamentally what contributing to open source is. And sometimes that's Creative Commons, sometimes that's code, sometimes it's documentation, sometimes it's organizing an event, but this is fundamentally what you're doing is taking something and putting it out there for the people.
Yep, absolutely. One of the things that I have seen spring up over the last year too, some things came from the community summit around WordCamp US last year, and that was a phenomenal event to be able to really the idea generation and ways to move things forward, but also the idea of next gen events and where everything isn't just WordCamp this region or WordCamp that country. And I loved some of the things that are happening. As a matter of fact, this week, Kerala, India is doing a photos week, and they're doing an entire week of photo submission. We have almost 1,000 photos
Oh,
by the end of an entire week that are being moderated in quickly because we have a team of about 30 moderators trying to um,
wow.
it's amazing. And at the end of the week, there's a competition, so people will win prizes for contributing the most photos and the most beautiful photos and all those kinds of things. So it's fun to see that. Earlier this year in Kolkata, they had uh, Career Fest, like our career event online too. So the idea that there's all of these next gen events that are happening that are really more specific to people's interests than just to go to a city and learn whatever people are talking about there. So I don't know where that idea came from and how it's been generated, but I'm kind of excited about it. I wonder what your thoughts are as well.
Well, so what you said really makes me think about also how sometimes we might fall too much on the human volunteer side of things. And we need to, when designing these systems, incorporate also what can be positive feedback loops of contribution, of interaction. So that's very abstract. So let me give you some real world examples. Part of the reason why Google is the best search engine in the world isn't just that they index all the pages and look at all the links, right? Anyone can do that. Bing can do that. Others can do that. Part of the reason why Google is the best search engine is because they also look, when people search, they look at what they click on
Mm,
and they use that as a feedback loop, right? So when you click on something, do you stay there or do you immediately come back to the search results and then click on something else, which is like a really strong indicator that you didn't find what you were looking for. So the
hmm
last thing that you click on was probably the answer. So maybe that was fifth on the results with their normal ranking,
hmm
but then for search terms, they can move it up. So to expand this example to photos, for example, I like that we have this volunteer team that's moderating and everything. But I also wonder how we could make it more wiki-like, more like sort of open, that doesn't require like moderators and volunteers. So for example, like, is there a way that anyone could suggest tags or edit captions on any photo on the photo directory? Why not? You know, and let people tag however they like. And then every time, with the APIs that show photos for a search, right? Because ultimately, why do these photos exist? Because people look for something, they get
hmm
some photos. Okay, when the photos show up in a search, we should track and maybe have publicly available as part of the API how many times this photo was shown for what search and whether someone selected it or not, right?
hmm
Because like the team can have a quality rating, right? They can say this is good or bad, but it doesn't truly answer for this search. Does this match, right? We can have some generic, you know, things. This makes a good photo,
Right.
but people might also be searching for bad photos. Maybe they're searching for something that looks like a 90s GIF, you know?
Mm.
And so if our photo directory only allows things that look beautiful, like this background photo I have right here, we're not actually solving the user problem of they're typing something in a box and they want a free available answer to what they're doing. Um, so with Openverse, with other things, I think a lot about how we can incorporate that data and also make it transparent and public. So Google hides all this. This is their secret sauce. We don't need to, right? It's not our business model. It's actually a cost for us to run these things. So it's not a lot of cost, which is kind of beautiful, right? With Moore's
Hmm.
law, every 18 months, these things get effectively cheaper to run, provide for the whole internet. I don't know if you saw a little digression, but Signal, which is this open source secure messaging app, just published their finances.
Hmm.
It's kind of beautiful. I don't know exactly their monthly active users, but it is a world scale, large messaging app that is secure. And running that network and all the developers was on the order of like 15 million per year. That's not bad, actually, right? In
Right.
a economy for trillions of dollars to
Hmm.
provide secure open source messaging for humanity.
Yeah.
And and the scaling, I think, let's pretend they're at 100 million right now. If they went to a billion monthly active users, I don't think it goes to from 50 to 500. I think it goes from like 50 to maybe 80, you
Right.
know? And out of those billion people, can you crowdfund that or something like that? That's actually pretty neat. So
Hmm.
yes, there's real cost to these things, but I think they are costs that we're providing enough utility that they can be borne by the people. And then we don't have to have these advertising or other models where we essentially have to sell people's data or attention
Hmm.
or essentially desire, right? Because what is advertising? But I'm trying to create a desire in you that you can have. Your life was fine. Now I'm going to make you want something that you didn't know you wanted. That's what advertising is at the end of the day, which is, in a Buddhist sense. I do not want to create more desires in others, right? I'm trying to eliminate desires in myself as well, right? I don't want to have to desire anything. Uh, okay, that was a lot of discussions. What's your next question? I apologize. Sabbatical,
So
Matt.
sabbatical Matt, that's right. I love it. It's great. I love these kinds of conversations as opposed to scripted and that kind of thing. But I do have some notes because I want to make sure I cover a few things. One of those is I created a project, uh, a service last year called WPSpeakers.com, where people from all over, anybody can join the database, anybody can search the database to find WordPress speakers for their events, whether it's
Hmm?
a podcast or a WordCamp or a meetup, etc. And then I have other ideas for things that I want to build, right? I've registered some domains, I'm not going to lie. But I was at WordCamp last year at a WordCamp, and I came under criticism from somebody who said, you shouldn't be creating these outside of WP.org. You should give these ideas, especially if you're not looking to make money and all of that, that these should exist within WordPress.org. Since I published that, we also have now the WP World that Marcus Burnett has. We have GatherPress that's coming up. We have, other jobs boards and things like that. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on people like me who will like see a need, find a
Hmm.
gap, and fill it.
I would kind of do a yes and, I mean, the beautiful thing about WordPress is it's open. So yes, you can do that. We have some restrictions around the trademark,
Of
right?
course.
Like you have to call it WP, not WordPress. But
Mhm.
you know what? Do it. And I think that you had to do it on your own domain probably means that our methods of allowing someone to spin something like that up on WordPress.org maybe or have a high barrier. That's probably a nice way to put it. Honestly, I don't think these things happen unless I ask for them,
Mm.
to be totally honest, like right now. So if it's not something I asked for or you proposed to me, um, it doesn't really happen on WordPress.org right now. I would love for these things too. And now when we do something on WordPress.org, we're committing to maintain it for life. So that's
Right.
part of why we have this,
Of course.
deliberation about like, so, but I don't think there's anything wrong. And we have done this in the past where something starts out in the community and then we kind of like acquire it or incorporate
Absorb
it
it.
into the
Yeah.
org or WordPress.org.
Right.
The not the Borg, the warg, right? W.org, warg.
Oh, I got it. I
That's kind of
gotcha.
funny, actually.
I like that.
We're the
That
warg.
we just
Um,
got to the nerdiest part of Matt in that right there.
well, I've been wondering if I should switch WordPress.org to use W.org because we have W.org, which is kind of cool.
It
There's
is.
not very many one-letter domains in the world, and we have one of them. So, I wondered if we should switch it to that. The but branding is very, very important. So, like,
Yes.
you know, I, it's something I ruminate on. But the
Hmm.
so yeah, that could become part of the org in the future. Also, it's fine to have things that are satellites, um, but they could be their own brands. So, for example, WP Tavern
Hmm.
is kind of a org product, right? And that it's not commercial. It's sponsored by Audrey Capital, which is myself.
Hmm.
Much like WordPress.org is all paid for by me. Um, so that, but it's nice to be its own site because it's like a newspaper. It's like a publication,
Yeah.
right? And actually, I don't know if you saw, but oh, did I post this? I maybe I didn't click publish, but like we've actually narrowed it down to seven potential writers,
Oh,
and
good.
we're just a 2 week trial where they can, if they want to, can sort of bill at the standard trial rate and automatically trial to $25 per hour.
Hmm.
So they'll be able to just start blogging and managing the community on site. They'll all get access. And then at the end of that, we'll pick 2 people to go full time.
Oh, that's fantastic. I was wondering about that actually just the other day, thinking I haven't seen anything on the tavern since December, other than
Yeah,
the
that means I
jukebox.
must not have clicked publish yesterday. It's funny, although I've been on sabbatical, my days have been very full. Like there's just so
Yes.
much backlog. I think I responded to an email from 2018 a few days ago. Like I've got a lot of catch up to do. And so that's part of what I'm doing.
Well, I imagine people reach out to you an awful lot, so your inbox must be very full most of the time.
Yes and no, actually. So, people reach out to me in some ways way less than you would expect.
Mm.
Uh, and actually, the people closest to me reach out to me the least. I just had this,
Mm.
as I was going on sabbatical, I met with the top people at Automatic, and you can imagine this is a very elite group. It's folks I've been working with often for many years, sometimes like 15, 20 years. We know each other really, really well. And one of the things I said to everyone was, I was like, guess how often of this group, um, how many times I've been called in the past 3 months? And
Free?
the guesses were always like pretty low. It was like,
Yeah.
1, 5, 10. But the actual answer was zero. Literally
Ah,
no one. I think I could stretch it out to maybe even 12 months. Like no one's ever called me. But
yeah.
it's my job to literally be responsive to these people. These are like my top lieutenants. These are the top people. I exist to serve as CEO. Um, so I was like, hey, just call me. And actually, it was nice because those last couple of weeks, that,
Mm.
that started happening. So they did start just like calling me out of the blue. And the way I do CEOing is I try to actually keep my schedule a lot more open from like pre-scheduled commitments so that I'm able to be responsive
Mm.
to anything people need because like I want to unblock people as fast as possible. So actually those last few weeks at Automatic were some of the best of my entire career. And it made me really kind of like it was very bittersweet to then, pass the baton, hand the crown to Tony. And
Yeah.
it was both sad because I was having so much fun, but also I was very proud, and I knew Tony would have like a fantastic time. So I was passing him something that was in a really good shape.
That's awesome. Are you worried that everything will be changed by the time you get back?
No, I'm hopeful everything will be changed. Like there is
I
some
love it.
changes I set in motion. I posted
Mhm.
about this big automatic reorg, and the cards. So just for those who don't know, you can now ask any automatician, what's your card? And they will answer one of 3 ways. They are trying to be the host, which is basically like WordPress.com, so they're trying to be a host. So that means they're very competitive with the GoDaddies and SiteGrounds and Bluehost of the world.
Mhm.
Um, or they have a help the host card. So that's Jetpack, that's WooCommerce, that's all the people working on core and WordPress. So like they're the things they do benefit every single host in the world, right?
Mhm.
And so, they can partner with all these hosts. They can ally with them. Those hosts can talk to them without worrying of it being used competitively. And the third card is just neutral, which could mean one of two things. It either means they're in a support function like HR or finance or something, or they're in a part of automatic, which just isn't part of the WordPress ecosystem. Like text or Tumblr right now, although
Mm-hmm.
Tumblr will get to be the host card in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it will be essentially a WordPress hosting thing as well, alongside WordPress.com in the future.
That's pretty cool. I do a lot of work in DEIB, within WordPress and within tech in general, working with different groups of underrepresented people. Started with underrepresented in tech.com in 2019, no, 2020, whatever it was, with Allie Nimmons. And she's recently stepped away. So I'm going to be bringing somebody new in to co-host with me. And I'm excited to announce that in the next couple weeks. Um,
Ooh, congratulations.
Thank you. It's very exciting. I'll tell you off screen so that it won't be recorded this week, but it's very exciting. There are so many pockets of, I don't know if pockets the right word, but under smaller subsets of the WordPress community that have similar needs. So, like for example, Black Press. Um, Last year, I gave a talk at WordCamp Phoenix, and I talked about Black Press, and I talked about how a community within a community like that could really bolster one another because we all have the experience of WordPress, but then subsets of people have other experiences that others of us don't. As a result of that, LGBTQpress.com became a thing, and we spun up a place for people in WordPress who are part of the queer community. And there are probably others that I'm not even aware of, but I have been talking with Anne McCarthy, and I know that the Queermatic folks have sponsored, um, they want to sponsor people from the queer community through the mentoring program, which I think is phenomenal. I had a meeting yesterday where I was the fly on the wall because I'm just there to support as an ally. The Black press community had a really amazing meetup yesterday where they talked about things, ways to move things forward. I just kind of want to hear what you think about these different groups that are kind of allies for one another and kind of growing up and how that's all working within the greater community.
Yeah, and this is obviously a hot topic in society right
Yes.
now. Well, because there are some versions of this work that have actually ended up being exclusionary, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, this is something, you know, I both think is ultimately beautiful and I struggle with,
Mm.
right? Because essentially what we're talking about is tribes or identities that separate us. Um, and so part of me really identifies with, Martin Luther King being, I want my children judged on the content of their character, not the color of their skin,
Mhm.
and so I think of WordPress as a fundamentally humanist um, philosophy and organization, meaning that I see you and I see Michelle. I have not seen however you might want to be labeled or however my mind might label you. Purple hair, woman, honestly, like all these things, like, yes, they exist. Let's not deny that these labels exist and we evolutionarily, our minds work that way. And, you know, we are tribal. Like, so we do kind of have an affinity for folks who might share some identity characteristics. And if we can use that to invite contributors, I think that's great. But I think it should always be towards the goal that how we treat each other, how we work together is sort of that human first, where we're not leading with, you know, like, awesome, Michelle, you are a woman contributor. No, you're a
Right.
contributor. Like that, I don't want to ever put an adjective in front of this. There's this great Morgan Freeman um, interview, which I actually kind of shook me when I first saw it because Morgan Freeman's someone I look up to a lot. He's one of my favorite actors, and um, and he was actually railing against Black History Month, which I was very surprised at because I've never
Yeah.
in my life thought that was something that shouldn't exist. Um, and his argument was interesting. He was like, "Hey," he was talking to someone. The interviewer was white and Jewish. He's like, "Is there a Jewish History Month? Is there a White History Month? No, you just call it history." And he's like, that was kind of his point. It wasn't to take anything away from Black heritage or anything like that. But he was like, our history is history.
Mhm.
And so we should talk about it 12 months out of the year, sort of that was his argument. I'm not making that argument, by the way. I don't think it's my place to. But when I saw that, I was like, whoa, okay. Here's someone who, with this identity card, I would say is a Black American who is very politically active, very a good moral thinker, who is making a case for this thing that I thought was just kind of standard. Right? Like, I just grew up with it. It was like my whole life. That's what we do. Um, why he thought it doesn't actually represent how he wanted to be seen as a person, or how
Mhm.
he wanted his identity's history to be seen as part of history and part of the canon of Western
Mhm.
civilization. So um and I say all these things like, gosh, I hope I didn't say anything wrong and offend anyone, but like these are the things I'm thinking about,
Yeah.
and how I sort of ruminate and struggle with some of these issues as
Mhm.
well.
So for the record, you're
But
not
I do always return,
anti-advocacy.
yeah, what I do always return to, and what always feels true at the end of the day, is the humanist part. We're humans. I want to see people as their primary identity being their name, however they choose to
Mhm.
identify, and then their behaviors, you know, and everything else, the labels, the categories, let's wear them lightly. And how beautiful is it that they could change,
Mm.
how someone chooses to identify might change over time. And that's kind of cool too.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know this, but actually, when I started contributing to open source, I did so under a pseudonym. I was anonymous, uh, because I was like a 17, 18-year-old kid in Houston
Right.
who had no computer science training, or like no qualifications. And one of my big struggles at that time was people wouldn't take me seriously. I think I have a blog post about this, but I remember walking into a Best Buy to buy my first digital camera, and they wouldn't pay attention to me. I'd saved up, I'd scrapped together money for months and months to buy my first digital camera. I was so proud that I went in there with, the $300 or what it was, that I really worked hard.
Mm.
And then they wouldn't even serve me. And I just felt like really ignored. Um, and so online, it was so cool. And that's actually one thing I think should be maintained. Like, I'm totally fine with people contributing to WordPress without their real name or real identity attached. You know, who
Yeah.
cares what you look like, or what your name is, or where in the world you are, or something like that? Like, all that matters is your contributions. And
Mm.
that, I think, is kind of the ultimate end of this. Like,
Mhm.
how can we make space? Obviously we do a lot of in-person stuff, so it doesn't work there. But like, at least in the online space, I think
Mhm.
we need to maintain that it's totally fine for someone to be completely anonymous and a full participant in the WordPress community. And that perhaps is the ultimate epitome of what being online allows us to
Mhm.
be free, or take on completely new, avatars, than what we happen to be born with.
Or gravatars, as it is.
Gravitar, yes, good reference.
That's awesome. Well, what else is coming up that you are looking forward to before we wrap things up and I let you continue to recover in isolation? What other things would you like to highlight?
Michelle, we covered quite a bit, so thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to doing this again someday.
Absolutely.
For
Well, thank you.
people, I'll say, for people to follow me, I'm blogging a lot on ma.tt, and I'm at Photomat on like Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, everything. So, yeah, hope to connect with people there.
Absolutely. I'll include all of those in the show notes, all the links. So if you want to follow Matt on all those places, you can, along with a transcript of today's episode so that people can read it instead of listen to it if that's what they want to do. Matt, thank you so much for taking some time to spend with me today on your sabbatical. I hope that you have some good rest over the next 3 months, in spite of continuing to kind of chime in and pay attention to what's happening. And I look forward to seeing you in Taipei.
See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye. WP Constellations is a production of Stellar WP, home of the events calendar, LearnDash, Give WP, Cadence, Iconic, Solid WP, Orderable, and Restrict Content Pro. Learn more about the Stellarverse at stellarwp.com.